Ben.
We're good. Softball, first practice. Had to leave.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's call the meeting to order. This is our Kershaw County Council meeting, February 25, 2025. We've been called to order. We have an invocation. Councilman Jones has invited Pastor Herbie Harris to give the invocation and start the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Do we have Pastor Harris here? Pastor Harris, please. Yes, sir. Yeah, so everyone can hear you if you'd speak into the mic.
I'm going to pray for us.
Okay.
You bow your heads. God, first, we're just going to say we're grateful because you first loved us, and help us just to be reminded of that and just have open hearts and open ears tonight to just listen to our neighbors and just remember that you are the ultimate servant, and help us just to remember to have a servant's heart. Allow the Holy Spirit to really just guide us and permeate this room and just help us just to remember that we're not here by chance, that we're neighbors on purpose, and it's our job to love each other and to make each other's lives better. And that helps us in the long run, and we're just thankful for that. Help us just to remember to be a good steward of all the resources and time you've given us. Give us many opportunities to be a blessing to others. I think of every person in this room, and I ask that you bless each and every one of us. Just help us just to make the most out of these opportunities. Help us remember that you've given us grace so that we can give it back to everyone we meet. And we just thank you for this time. We thank you for these opportunities. Help us just to remember to have a grateful heart. And we just praise you tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Pastor Harris. Gentlemen, that brings us to item number 4 on the agenda, adoption of the agenda. I'd seek a motion to move item number 5, the proclamation, to the next scheduled council meeting. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we move it to, I believe it's March the 11th.
Yes, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
We've got a second. Any discussion?
You want to give some clarification?
Just to give a little clarification on it, this was a proclamation in memory of Sly Robinson, a guy who gave a lot of his time to Kershaw County in many different ways, including law enforcement. And the family is having a memorial for him this Saturday, so we found it fitting if we wait till after the memorial service. So we're going to move it to March the 11th.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd also like to make an amendment to, if you turn to number 11, new business, I'd like to delete the stormwater regulations on large common plans till a future meeting.
That's 11B.
It's 11B under new business.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we've got a second from Mr. Tomlinson. Any further discussion on that one? Let's vote on the motion as amended, and then we can get back to the original vote. All right, voting on Mr. Jones' amendment to the agenda. Mr. Brazel?
No.
I thought you were raising your hand for something. All right, all in favor of the amendment from Mr. Jones, raise your hand. All right, the agenda's been amended. 1 second, Mr. Robinson. Anything else? We're back to the original amendment to remove the Robinson proclamation.
Right,
this is a family member.
Just state on behalf of the family, we want to thank you all for doing this for my brother and considering the family in this instance. So we really appreciate it, and we'll see you next month.
Hey, look, Sly had a huge impact on so many people in this community. It's the least we can do to accommodate you. You let us know what's good for you. Okay, we'll be in touch. Yes, sir. All right, gentlemen, that brings us back to the original amendment for the agenda. All in favor of moving the proclamation to the next scheduled meeting as stated, raise your hand if you're in favor. Ms. Hannah, it's unanimous on both counts, and Mr. Tucker is on his way from work. He was held up at work, so we do anticipate him coming later, but he will not be calling in. All right. Now, let's approve the agenda as amended.
I
Last
move that
vote.
we adopt the agenda as amended.
All right, second?
Second.
Needing no other discussion, all in favor, raise a hand if you're in favor. Ms. Hannah, it's unanimous. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That takes us to public comments. As Mr. DeBose is tallying the names and time, I just would ask everyone to silence their phones. We had a few phones going off last time, interrupted folks during this public comment session. It's not a time for question and answer. It's time for the council to hear from the public, which we look forward to doing. Mr. DeBose.
6 speakers tonight, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we've got
First speaker is Scott Chambers.
Mr. Chambers. You're the first speaker.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
if we may, could we inform everybody, including ourselves and staff, to let's pull the microphones close to our mouth?
Sure, I'll remind them each time as we do.
I've got my comments right here, and we'd like a copy. I'll leave them at the front desk up here.
Okay.
So, nice seeing you all again. My name's Scott Chambers. I'm a Kershaw County resident and a member of the Woodward Airfield Commissioners Board and a pilot. So I'm speaking on behalf of the AOD and the airport. Thank you for the opportunity, and it's not been the first, and I've spoken with several of you individually on other items as well. But so I'm going to speak on behalf of the airport and our friends here that, we all have opposing opinions, but I think we have more in common and very nice people. But there's just, difference of opinions here. So I like the prayer about being friendly, since I have my back to these folks right now. But anyway, many of the problems at airports today are the direct result of poor or non-existent planning for compatible land use. By the same token, almost every concern about airport and safety can be eliminated through reasonable and long-term land use planning. The object of airport-compatible land use planning is to ensure that the airport and surrounding community coexist in peace. Failure to plan and the resulting encroachment of incompatible development, such as homes, schools, too close to airports, are at the heart of most airport closures today. Effective planning can eliminate this conflict and ensure that airports remain open with the support of the communities that they serve. Inappropriate land use leads to neighbors being subject to potential noise, vibrations, and other hazards. Reduction in airport utility, which may lead to closure or a very important local resource asset, and worst of all, unhappy citizens. Currently, airports are closing at the rate of 1.4 per month. I'd like to reiterate what Woodward Airfield means to our community. Woodward Airport supports jobs. The airfield serves as a vital basis for services like medical airlifts, disaster relief, power and air pipeline inspection, power company rotor blade aerial trimming, law enforcement, SLED, DNR, Department of Natural Resources, 40 Service, Coast Guard training, Civil Air Patrol, Flight Academy, and charter aircraft, and many more. I'm grateful that we have thoughtful and experienced professionals in the South Carolina Aeronautics Commission that have worked with Woodward Airfield, Kershaw County administration, and stakeholders to develop best practices specific to Woodward Airfield and the surrounding community, incorporating the best practices developed from historic outcomes, successes, and failures. I'm very appreciative of the Kershaw County administrative team that's demonstrated exceptional effort, doing their very best to try to find the best outcomes possible. I know these gentlemen have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort trying to find the best path forward on this thing, and I'm sure it's not easy. So in closing, I've heard it said that when a community loses an airport, it's similar to losing an interstate, an exit off of an interstate. I liken it to communities along Route 66. So in closing, I support the request and request that the council support the AOD. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. DeBose, next speaker.
Next speaker is John Paul, Airport AOD.
Mr. Paul.
Thank you guys for having me here. I am a fellow pilot that has 2 airplanes housed.
If you could speak into the mic a little more, thank you.
So again, it's John Paul. I'm Kershaw's county citizen, and I have 2 airplanes stationed at the Woodward Airfield. The biggest thing I want to say is safety. The AOD, I'm in support of the AOD for the safety standpoint. I always say my motto with flying is live to fly another day. Takeoff and landing is the most crucial part. If we want the safety of the pilots and residents that live near the airport, provide for an increased life for those that live near the airport by taking noise and aircraft into consideration, prevent for high-density development from encroaching upon critical areas of the airport, such as runway protection zones and transition zones, ensure future funding for physical security of the airport by meeting federal and state expectations regulated by the acceptable land use. So I hope that you guys will take into consideration and vote for the AOD. Again, thank safety and the citizens that live in this county.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. DeBose.
Next speaker is David Smith, Airport AOD.
Mr. Smith, please.
Thank you. My name is David Smith. I'm a longtime resident, Kershaw County. I also serve as a project manager for the South Carolina Aeronautics Commission and assist compatible land use efforts across the state's 58 public use airports. And I'm sorry to say, but that number is 57, as I learned today, of the closing of an airport. Today I want to talk about something that's close to home, literally and figuratively. The Camden Woodward Airport is not just a couple of strips of asphalt with planes coming and going. It's a lifeline. It's an economic engine and a vital resource in our community, Kershaw County and the city of Camden. Let's start with neighbors. For those living nearby, Woodward Field is more than a local landmark. It's a connection point. It brings visitors, supports small businesses, and offers convenience just 4 miles from downtown Camden. But the value goes deeper. In times of crisis, think natural disasters or medical emergencies, this airport becomes a portal. Emergency resources, whether it's medical evacuation, relief supplies, can reach us quickly because of this facility. It's not just a convenience, it's peace of mind. Now let's consider industry. Woodward Field supports businesses like Koenig Aviation, local flight training, employing local folks and serving aircraft that keep commerce moving. It's a hub of general aviation with over 8,000 operations annually. Everything from small piston airplanes to air taxis to jet corporate. This activity ripples through our economy, supporting jobs, tourism, and even attracting new opportunities. The study from the South Carolina Aeronautics Commission highlights how airports like our Woodward Field contribute millions to local economies statewide. Woodward Field isn't just holding its own, it's driving prosperity for Kershaw County. For other users, pilots, visitors, and even military personnel, the airport is a reliable asset. 5,000-foot lighted runway and historical significance, from training World War II pilots like Robert K. Morgan of the Memphis Belle B-17, World War II, to serving today's aviators, make it a point of pride and utility. But with growth comes responsibility. That's where compatible land use protective overlay comes in. These zones ensure that the airport can operate safely while respecting the needs of those nearby. They prevent hazards like tall structures or incompatible developments, keeping pilots safe and noise management manageable for residents. And this brings me to the public process we're engaged in right now. The Airport Overlay District. I want to applaud everyone who stepped up, residents, property owners, county officials, and the Planning Commission. You've tackled tough questions. How do we balance aviation safety with property rights? How do we protect our equine heritage while modernizing? It's not easy, but your input has shaped the document that we're considering tonight. Residents have voiced valid concerns, and county leaders have listened and crafted amendments to address these concerns. The collaboration is what makes our community strong. The overlay process benefits everyone. For airport users, it ensures operational safety. For neighbors, it preserves quality of life while allowing existing uses like barns and horses. Barns and horses make good neighbors to airports, by the way. And it's a compromise that reflects Camden's spirit, forward-thinking yet rooted in tradition. We're not just complying with FAA guidelines, we're building a future that works for all. As we approach the third reading of this AOD, I'm reminded of the quote by Helen Keller that says, "Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much." That's what's happening here. Your engagement, your voices have brought us to this point, and I'm hopeful that this step forward will solidify Woodward Field's role as an economic and emergency cornerstone while keeping our community safe and thriving. I support the AOD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr.
Next-
DeVos.
Next speaker is Tom Webb III. Subject is litter.
Mr. Webb.
Have a little present for y'all. But first, Scalia, Antonin Scalia, Supreme Court Justice, died 9 years ago this month under unusual circumstances. He went hunting down in West Texas, didn't come for breakfast at the bunkhouse. So they went and found him dead in bed with a pillow on his face, and he never got an autopsy. If they suspected that he died of natural causes, I think he would have got an autopsy. Somebody's hiding something, and I haven't heard anything since then that indicates what happened. Could have been assassinated. Anyway, about your litter ordinance. Seems kind of German to me, German. No vases or flower pots on private property, even out in the boondocks of Kershaw County. How can you get away with that? Maybe we need J.D. Vance to come here and visit a little bit and straighten some things out. I think we're supposed to have freedom, but seems like maybe it gets always nibbling at it a little bit. So our litter ordinance seems like it came from the Charleston County litter ordinance, cut and pasted, but it probably came from somewhere else too. They did the same thing before, cut and pasted, maybe from Maryland, and maybe eventually from Germany because of the authoritarian way that it's presented. That you can get fined $250 for having a flower pot on your property. I know you're not going to make that happen, but it's what's in the ordinance. It's in there. So why let it be in there if you're not going to enforce it? Well, somebody might enforce it someday. If not you, another council. You're setting the stage for something egregious. So I guess I'm getting ahead of it all a little bit. Since I can't have crockery or a flower pot, or I can't have a vase, glassware on private property out in the boondocks, or nobody else can, maybe the next thing will be no flowers. I won't be able to have flowers. So, you know me, I'm trying to make a point. I'm going to turn in flowers. I'm getting ahead of the game. If you're going to outlaw flowers, I'm going to turn them in. These are them. My grandma planted them over 100 years ago. They're in little separate plastic bags. So if you want to take some home, you're welcome to them. I'm not being very mean. But I'm really angry with what y'all have done. I really am, about passing an ordinance that steps on us. You know, the old flag, don't tread on me. Well, you're treading on us and our constitutional rights and our Bill of Rights. And that's what Vance got on to Germany about and the European Union. He fussed at them, and it had an effect. So These are antique flowers, and you're welcome to them. My grandma planted them over 100 years ago, and she used to sell them. She sold them during the Great Depression. There was a market downtown, and some people still had a little bit of money, and she was going to get it. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Mr. DeBose.
Next speaker is Lynn Conto, AOD and Comp Plan.
Ms. Conto.
My name is Lynn Conto. I live at 1265 Sanders Creek Road. And the first thing I want to do is thank you for the previous amendments to the AOD and listening to the people in the community, especially in the horse community. Because horses are important, and they are part of a business as well. And my big request today is for you to consider a grandfather clause to protect current farm owners, their houses, and their barns in the future, and if they were to sell the property. I'm not against the AOD, as I've said many, many times. I just don't want it to infringe on the horse community. So to add to this, the comprehensive plan spotlights key businesses and events in Kershaw County. And I want to talk to you a little about the horse events in Kershaw County. The Carolina Cup brings in 35,000 people a year. The Colonial Cup brings in 10,000 people a year. SCEP has 21,500 visitors, 8 to 10 disciplines, 3 clinics, and the Olympus Honors in the year. They have 27 events this past year. We're supposed to have 30, but 3 were canceled due to weather. The Camden Hunt has 28 people on average hunting, 43 hunts in a year. 62 people come in from other places to cap, and 35 riders come in from outside of town for joint meets. The Horse and Hound Polo has up to 400 people at a time. The Camden Hunter Trials has 66 people this past year. The Camden Hunter Pace, which is also off Red Fox Road, has 75 people. The Camden Hunt Horse Show, which is connected to Hunt Country, had 40 people this past year and has had up to 100 people at a time. The Watery Hunt has 25 per hunt and 130 members. And 50 people came in from outside for Sporting Week. Watery Polo had up to 300 people. The Endurance Ride, which goes through Hunt Country, which is off Red Fox Road, had 71 to 75 people last year and expecting up to 90 people this year. The Camden Equine Circuit has 30 to 60 people per horse show, up to 100. It has 14 shows a year, 10 of which are in Kershaw County. 4 shows are within an hour of Kershaw. CEC's members ranged anywhere from 69 to 80 to 100 members, depending on the year. The Carriage Company has 20 to 30 events a year for tours, weddings, and special events. And rodeo, you have up to about 300 people, depending on the rodeos. There are 2 different rodeos in town. The Steeplechase Museum also rents 30 times a year, typically 100 or more people for each event. So what does this all mean to everyone? It brings in many people for the weekend, for restaurants, gas stations, stores, hotels, Airbnbs. This definitely needs to be spotlighted. It's just not just the Carolina Cup, and it's not just SCEP. There's hundreds of people coming in and out of Kershaw County. Also in the comprehensive plan, page 80, you need to remove Clarksville and Montgomery and add Kershaw County because it's a Kershaw County comprehensive plan.
I told you so.
You need to spotlight historic homes and less focus on cookie cutter homes as images in the comprehensive plan because that's what makes Camden. Include the airport in this important document because it is part of Kershaw County. Less trains and more planes. Let's have a balance in the comprehensive plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Conto, and all those who participated. All right, gentlemen, that concludes public comments.
One more.
Oh, sorry, there's one more?
Yes, Ned Towle on AOD.
Oh, forgive me, Ned. Come on up. Mr. Towle.
There we go. Thank y'all for having me. I'm just, I'm glad I'm going last because I get to follow up on everything they all said. I agree completely with everything they all said about the airport and the equine community. This ordinance has been the bane of my existence, and I think many of y'all's since the beginning. It's been tough, but I think it's been handled very well. The airport is incredibly important to the county, I know, and to my family. We've got, I'd say my family's customers use it about 30 times a year. They've got jets that fly in. So, and that's just with our farm. So when you broaden that out to the entire community, the equine community, I'd say it gets tremendous amount of use. It is, it has been a tough issue to handle. I know that in my house, I cannot say the word airport overlay anymore. When Brent calls me, I have to walk outside. You know, when we got this, came across our desk initially, it was for lack of a better word, a template, and it needed a little Kershaw County twist to it. And Brent, as the representative for District 2, I know he got 90% of the calls and complaints and did a lot of listening. And I want to thank him for doing that. And I know that a lot of the people that called me got sent his way. You know, I apologize for forwarding all those calls and emails to you. But, you know, I want to tell the equine community that this, in my opinion, this version of it absolutely covers all of the amendments that the Planning Commission sent to Kershaw County Council, and that I feel very comfortable with it, and that I think that no ordinance is going to be perfect. You know, do I love it all? No. You know, it's like, you know, sausage, making sausage. It's not pretty, but the outcome tastes pretty good. You know? So, you know, I appreciate what y'all have done putting into it. You know, were I in y'all's shoes, Councilman Jones, Councilman Brazel, when I served on city council, I definitely was opposed to most anything and everything that government did. So y'all voting against it absolutely wouldn't hurt my feelings either. But understanding the way in which things look like they're going, I just want the equine industry and the agricultural community to understand that I feel very confident that 90% of it feels good to me. And that the council has done y'all have done a great job in working through it. Because it is, when I look at that land use table, it is like a Rubik's Cube, and there's nothing easy about it. In addition to the agricultural community and the equine community, you've also looked out for the religious community. Brandon, I know you've done a lot of work for Malvern Hills Baptist Church. I know, Danny, I think you've looked out for them as well. And, you know, that was a big issue. And so I appreciate y'all really digging into this. We're going to try to do as expedient a process with the comprehensive plan as we did with this, get it to y'all as quickly as we can. And, you know, hopefully it'll go as smoothly as this. Although, again, like making sausage, it's ain't gonna be pretty, but it's gonna be good. You know, I know Derek is a stickler for how things are done, and I've always enjoyed working with Derek on these types of things because he has a way of looking at things from a lawyer, but also very realistically. And the process is important as well. So we're going to try to make sure that we cover our bases, we dot every I, we cross every T, and we send something to y'all that everyone on our commission is happy with, and that y'all can work with. You know, there's one of the major things that I feel confident needs to be addressed that our agricultural community, or I'm sorry, our agricultural sector has doubled from 2017, 2022, from $180 million economic impact to over nearly $400 million. A lot of that has to do with the Cal-Maine expansion, the New South expansion, and the Prestige Farms new facility. So we have recently been voted #1 for-profit in the county, most profitable farming county in the country. So these are things that have happened since we began the process, and we're going to do what we can to get it all in there. And I want to thank y'all again for your hard work, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Towle. Appreciate that.
That concludes public comments.
That concludes it. Okay. All right, thank you. That does conclude public comments. That takes us to item number 7A, which is a public hearing. Before we get into it, just remind folks that we've got a few people signed up for the public hearing. Each speaker has 10 minutes. The conversation and remarks need to be germane to the actual item for the public hearing according to County Council's rules. The first one, under item 7A, I'll open up a public hearing regarding much of what we heard about tonight. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Code of Zoning and Land Development Regulations in Kershaw County, the Airport Overlay District. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up?
Mr. Chair, there's one person signed to speak at public hearing on this matter, Mr. Richard Osworth.
Mr. Osworth. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Osworth, yes.
Osworth, okay. Mr. Osworth.
My name's Richard Osworth, and I live at 768 Red Fox Road. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak on the proposed amendments to the Airport Overlay District and to enter into the record our concerns to the proposal. We are among, to any amendments to the proposal, we are among that, oh, I'm sorry. We're going to start over again.
Yes, sir, you've got time. Go ahead.
All right. We have 3 points to make tonight. Point number one, we hate the proposed amendments to the AOD. One among you previously and rightly stated that there will always be a small percentage of the public who cannot be pleased by any amendments to the proposal. We are among that small percentage. We contend, however, that while most of the public is indifferent to the proposal, there are only a handful of people, that is 5 of you and 3 or 2 down here, that think this is a good idea. It's pretty apparent that the proposed amendments, if passed, will cause unnecessary hardship to the owners of existing horse farms on Red Fox Road. While the blame lies in part on the federal government, it also lies with you, the county council. First, the concept of extending the airport's rights to land beyond its own through the ever-increasing expansion of the runway protection zone to the point of now wanting to clear it of the homes of 50-plus years is a government taking without compensation. Second, the FAA regulating by advisory circular bypasses the rulemaking process required under the Administrative Procedures Act. Third, making the guidance and recommendations to an advisory circular mandatory as a condition of receiving grant funding is coercion, plain and simple. Fourth, deeming Red Fox Road landowners' homes non-conforming limits what can be done on those private properties, devalues those private properties, and threatens their insurability. That's a taking without compensation. The FAA is, the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution provides that private property shall not be taken for public use without just compensation. The FAA is violating Red Fox Road landowners' Fifth Amendment right, and because it wants airport improvement program grant funding, the council is a willing participant in the act. Point 2, you have suggested that development, new or existing, is an encroachment on the airport. We, however, see it as quite the opposite. In 1971, 13.5 acres and a clear zone easement over an additional 30 more acres was enough, as so it seemed. Fast forward to 1989, when the clear zone became the runway protection zone, and instead of encompassing the airspace overhead, now reached down and touched the ground. Then the distance calculations began not at the end of the runway, but 200 feet beyond that. And then, in or around 2016, the pasture-like fencing around the airport on the Red Fox Road side came down, landscaping cleared, and a 10-foot chain link fence went up. And after its last attempt at on-site stormwater management, a slew of concrete culvert, I quote, spare parts, unquote, were left up against the fence along Red Fox Road. It's an eyesore, it's offensive, and just plain disrespectful to the horse farm owners on Red Fox Road. Now, by your proposed amendments to the Airport Overlay District, again, the airport is in effect taking private property without just compensation. In short, the airport has encroached upon the Red Fox Road community, and to be frank, is not a good neighbor. In fact, some of its recent improvements make it a blight to Red Fox Road and Hunt Country community. Point 3. The airport layout plan submitted to the FAA, which has received conditional approval, must be amended. The FAA approved ultimate airport layout plan includes the installation of a medium-intensity approach light system and runway alignment indicator lights, AKA Mauser lighting system, and the taking of properties at 517, 529, 539, 540, and 550 Red Fox Road in order to do so. When installed, the lighting system will cross over Red Fox Road, the concerns of which are threefold. First, and by definition, Mauser consists of a combination of steady burning light bars and flashers. The sequenced flasher array consists of 5 white flashing lamps. Collective flashing of all lights in the sequenced flasher array gives the appearance of a ball of light traveling toward the runway. We got this description straight from the FAA. The results from a quick Google search on the effects of flashing light on humans, I quote,
It's alarming.
It's alarming. Flashing lights can cause a range of effects in humans, including discomfort, disorientation, headaches, nausea, and most significantly, seizures in individuals with photosensitive epilepsy. Other potential effects include rapid blinking, muscle rigidity, and difficulty with fine motor control, flicker vertigo, visual discomfort, cognitive effects, and distraction and anxiety for individuals with conditions like ADHD or autism. Go ahead, Google it yourself. Second, will Red Fox Road be closed at Dicey Creek in order to accommodate the Mauser installation? We heard that it would. Will the airport be erecting a 10-foot chain link fence there too? Will the only way in and out of our properties now be via Highway 1? Third, regardless of whether or not Red Fox Road closes at Dicey Creek, the taking of property on both sides of the Mauser lighting system will be a community disruption, drastically reducing our long-established Red Fox Road, Hunt Country community's cohesiveness. Surely this can't be your intent. This is Hunt Country. The sign on the corner proclaims it to be so. Even though the staff have given the concerned citizenry verbal assurance that the properties at 517, 529, 539, 540, and 550 Red Fox Road will not be purchased and the Mauser lighting will not be installed, we want it in writing. amend and resubmit to the FAA the airport layout plan. This concludes the 3 points we'd like to make on why this AOD proposal is a bad idea. I'm leaving copies of our remarks here for you, and I'd like a copy to go to the recording secretary also for the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Osworth. Mr. DeBose, do we have anyone else signed up for this public hearing?
No further speakers for this public hearing.
No further speakers for this public hearing. We'll close the public hearing on 7A for the AOD. Gentlemen, that takes us to item number 7B, a public hearing authorizing a FELO in relation to Creed Solar. Again, this item is also on the agenda later for a vote. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Mr. DeBose, do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, 2 speakers. First speaker is Craig Bell.
Mr. Bell.
Hey, Council. Craig Bell from Rembert.
Into the mic, Mr. Bell, just so we can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'm a beekeeper, and Rembert, we raise honeybees and make honey. Green Energy reached out about this Creed project. They were bringing to the county and was wondering if I was interested in keeping bees on their solar project. After learning a little more about what they were doing and how we could work together, I agreed, and I'm looking forward to having the increased production by putting bees on their project. We'll keep our honeybees near the solar array. The bees will travel over 2 miles, gathering nectar from flowers and providing fruits, nuts, and berries as a byproduct of their pollination for wildlife. I was just coming to speak in favor of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming out tonight. Mr. DeBose, who else has signed up?
Next speaker is Sandra Dollar.
Ms. Dollar? Ms. Dollar, did I pronounce that correctly? Yes, you did. Okay, thank you. Please.
Thank you. When I first heard that we were going to have a solar farm about a mile from where I live on Cassett Road, I was delighted. I am so thrilled that this county is undertaking a project like this because it is, from what I can see, there are no downsides to solar. The sun is free. It's a resource we have a lot of here in South Carolina. Why not take advantage of it? We don't have to build any big nuclear plants or dig any wells or anything like that to make this work. It's quiet, it's clean, it doesn't disrupt anybody else because it's going to be well planned and set back from the road and well buffered. I'm thrilled, and I'm hoping that you will consider more solar projects in the county, because I think as we've grown, I've been down here 23 years now, and this county has grown enormously in that time. We have a lot of needs. This is a great opportunity to bring revenue into the county and serve our citizens while hopefully lowering the cost of electricity and providing a real stable source of electricity as well. So again, thank you for bringing this up and bringing it into our county. I hope you will do more of this, and I look forward to being a neighbor to the Creed Solar Project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dollar. Mr. DeBose, anyone else signed up?
No further speakers.
We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Again, appreciate everyone's participation tonight in the public hearings. Gentlemen, that takes us to the next item for a motion. Public presentation. This is Central Carolina Technical College update. I see that we have in the audience Dr. Kevin Pollock, the board chair, Paul Napper, and several other members from foundations and otherwise. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Schumake has a motion.
Second.
Mr. Thompson has a second. Any discussion? Let's take it to a vote. All in favor? Raise your hand. It's unanimous. Ms. Hannah, for the record. Yes, sir. Mr. Pollock. Dr. Pollock, would you please come up? And whoever else you need to join you. And if you would, please recognize any other chair or foundation members, board members that you have with you.
We have Mr. Sid Isler is here as well. And so.
Hey, Sid.
And I do have a handout for you, Council.
Okay, they'll get that up.
Thank you. So I'm here, it's all positive. So relax and sit back. I have nothing to complain about. So I wanted to provide you, first of all, I want to recognize our chair, Mr. Napper, Paul Napper, who's done an awful lot of good for the college and for the county. And the fact that he's working hand in hand with all of us has been allowing us to do a lot of the things that we're doing, and I'm going to share a lot of that with you. So what I wanted to do is provide a little bit of an update, answer any questions you might have. So some of our highlights, the handout that you have, one of the questions we get a lot of is how many students do we have from Kershaw County? So if you look at this, our enrollment for 23-24, and we call that an academic year, starts in the fall and runs through the year. We had 944 Kershaw students that year, this year. Our average for the last 5 years is 684, and please remember that also includes the pandemic time. So we average over 700, about 700 students a year. But last year we went up to 944. The scholars money that you provide us, we used a little bit less of it during the pandemic, but we were able to roll it in. And Kershaw gets that money back in more than what is going out. Last year's scholars from 23-24, 43 students benefited from the scholars money that you put in. And you put in, by the way, $25,000 a year. They received $87,245 last year in scholars money. So it goes right back into the scholars that are needed here. Part of the reason we didn't utilize all of it during the pandemic years is because there was a lot of federal funding, and we have to go through a process of federal funding first before we come down to local funding. So it has all been utilized, though, and it was certainly helpful for our students to go through. We invest in Kershaw County, and I'm going to just give you what we've done in the last few years. I said this when I spoke at City Council last week. I said, this has all happened during the time I'm here, but that makes it sound very egotistical. This is just what's happened in the last 4 years. We put $484,000 into the Kershaw Revolutionary War Visitor Center that came from the college. Century Boulevard Landscape, we have $500,000 to redo that road. We will plan on doing that road, but you'll hear that we have other projects first, so there's no sense for us to do the road and then tear up the road by doing some large-scale projects. But the money is set aside, and it's already been allocated to us from the state. Our signage project, we have $250,000 that we can utilize to put a new sign in by the main road before you come to the campus. That would be allowing us to have better recognition, and it would also better recognize the campus and where its location is for people coming in. The Colonial Arts Center, we are putting $995,000 into that facility as well. Part of this, again, is every one of these facilities and things that we do have an educational component to them. So we will be working, hosting courses and classes and programs out there as well. Finally, over the past 2 years, we requested and were allocated $10 million each of the last 2 years to do projects here in Kershaw County. We left it open-ended. We put names of the projects as as college expansion, new county building, new college building, so that we could have some flexibility with that. Really what we're saying is we have $20 million available to us to put into our campus. We also have 22 acres that were purchased many years ago that's really adjacent to our college. When you come in off the main road, you go past the McDonald's and you turn right, and our campus is on the left. It's the wooded area to the right of that, right across from our campus. So we have 22 acres. A few of those acres we can't utilize because they're wetlands, but we have funding and the ability to do that. So we're in negotiations right now with several large businesses, and I don't feel comfortable sharing all the names of them at this time because there's nothing that's been signed. But we're looking at training facilities. We're looking at healthcare options. We're looking at programs that we could go out and do. Our master facility plan is currently being updated, and we could either create a large building or we could create perhaps 3 smaller sized buildings, depending on the needs. We will probably have a better idea over the next 6 months what options we will have available to us, but that is exciting for this area. In a sense, over that time frame, we will have put $22.5 million or so into the county. Just so you're aware, and as you know, the state is going through its budget right now, we also requested additional funding this year as well. The first Ways and Means Committee did allocate some to this county, but I wouldn't hold my breath yet until it goes through the entire process, as there'll be a lot of changes, I'm sure, before that. but we did ask for additional funding. We are also asking you as well for some additional not additional funding, but to just continue the funding that you currently do with us. We have a $2 mil local appropriation, and we just ask that to continue. And we do ask for the $25,000 to continue in the Scholars Program. It's utilized by the students that are here. The actual program is coming to the end this summer, and what we'd like to do is do a 5-year renewal with you. We've asked each of the county chairs. I've spoken with the 4 counties. All 4 counties are agreeable to that, and we'd like to try to negotiate an additional 5-year extension of that. If there's something that you don't want to do with that, we could certainly do a different time frame. But it is certainly benefiting the students here in the county. A couple other pieces, just so you're aware. Everybody asks, where do the students go? The majority of the students actually go to our Kershaw campus. Only about 25% of them come to the college, go to Kershaw, and then end up going to Sumter for a course or some finishing of their programs. 35% of our students from Kershaw are totally 100% online. That is also a result of the pandemic. Normally, 2-year schools like ours are 50% full-time, 50% part-time students, and we're about 75% part-time students right now. And the reason for that is everybody's working, and so they're only taking 1 or 2 classes. So our students have a variety of options for them to take courses. What do they go into? The Kershaw students from this last year, we had students going into accounting, basic mechatronics, welding, general technology, pre-nursing certifications, nursing, management, computer technology, and 339 of them went in to take transfer degrees so they could go to a 4-year school. So our students go into a variety of things here from Kershaw. I'm here to answer any questions you have. We want to thank you very much for your support. It's been very important for us, and we feel that we have a great partnership with all of you.
Mr. Chair.
Dr. Pollock, I was just going to say, before we have any questions, Chairman Napper, anything you want to share?
I'm just very excited about the new college that we're looking at bringing to Kershaw County, and I'd like to thank you, Chairman. You have really come forth with bringing prospective tenants to our new college, and at this point we have $20 million in the bank to start building. Hopefully we'll get another $10 million this year, and we'll have a $30 million project coming to Kershaw County. Should be a game changer for the next 25 to 30 years.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Pollock, Mr. Shemek, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of things. This is near and dear to me. It's difficult for me to overstate, Dr. Pollock and Chairman Napper, how much I value this Central Carolina school. So a couple quick things. To do the job I have, of course, I have a doctorate. I went to law school, and I say that not as a brag, but to say the only reason I'm able to do that is because of a community college. When I got out of the military, I was working full-time, and I got an associate's in general studies. It was my first degree. And it was that degree that allowed me to transfer to a 4-year, which allowed me to then go to law school. Had it not been for that stair-step ability, which is also an affordable approach, which I did not have the money to do it, the GI Bill back then, pre-9/11, was a much smaller GI Bill, so I would not have been able to do what I've done today without that college system. My mother got her associates and became a nurse when I was 15 years old, and it transformed the entire dynamic of our whole family. So our entire family, from when I was an infant, until my own success, has been attributable to these types of colleges. And I have 2 students that are both Central Carolina students. They're both dual degree programs. And for those of you that have students going that direction, a little thing that I learned, and this is no disrespect to our wonderful school system, which I also very much support, but you have 2 options if you want to take college classes as a high school student, AP or dual enrollment. The problem with AP is you have this all-year class and you take this exam. It's possible to be in a class where the exam is maybe not what you thought it would be, and you end up taking an AP exam and not getting a certain number, and that entire year, I don't want to say is wasted, but you get no college credit for it. With dual enrollment, you know all along how you stand, and you'll know if you'll get the credit. My son, against my advice, when he was a sophomore, told me that he wanted to step out of AP, do no APs, and do all dual enrollment. I told him it was a bad idea because I didn't know much about dual enrollment. And this is one of the few times he doesn't ever listen to these, so when I tell him that he's right, he won't hold it against me. He's going to Clemson in part because he was able to take these dual enrollment classes. The college saw him no differently than they did the AP classes his peers were taking. They were treated exactly the same in grade point average. They have, again, it's not that they have better teacher access, but the people that will ultimately decide if he gets a college credit are the same ones teaching the class, as opposed to some anonymous, board of examiners. One of his very good buddies is taking the mechatronics program and is already looking at jobs in, around here. I mean, we want our kids to be able to come back here, and that college is a huge part of it. So whatever this body can do to help, count me aboard, because, again, I'm a huge fan for your work, and thank you both for coming.
Thank you. Just for your own edification, 37% of our last year students were dual enrolled. So I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemake. I can see where this is going. It's so substantive. Mr. Chairman, first, can I get a motion to suspend the time limit under our rules tonight for the purpose of this conversation?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, we're suspended. Go ahead.
Just to make one more point, Mr. Shoemake, 93 to 94% of our students had a ratio from graduation to work. In other words, 93 to 94% of our students, varying on which year you look at, step off our stage into a job.
That's great.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Jones.
It's good to have you here. I'd just like to say, how did you keep Paul Napper so quiet in the beginning?
I took him to dinner first. I think he's just full.
You guys do a good job, and I'm not going to go on as long as Mr. Shoemake did. He was giving a dissertation over there. But bottom line is, my daughter graduated with a surgical tech, and it turned her life around. Even though she doesn't use it, she lives with her husband. He provides everything. But bottom line is, I've seen the results that you guys do. I have a quick question. The scholarship money.
Yes, sir.
Is it going to continue?
I'm hoping so. That's what we'd like to have. That's why we're asking you as formally, this is a formal
With
request
the C
to
average.
continue that. Yes, C average. It really does help our students. With that money, a majority of our students, along with Pell Grant money and a variety of other things, even now do not have to pay tuition costs because those are covered if they can come in with a C average or better. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to add a quick
Thompson,
comment.
please.
Thank you all for being here. And Mr. Napper, we are blessed. We are blessed to have the chairman of the commission be right here from Kershaw County. That is a blessing for our technical college and for us to have a trained and ready workforce. I, too, did a dual enrollment programs in high school, was blessed to have English and math credits when I went to college. And then also I got to see the inner workings when I served on the Technical College Foundation Board of Trustees. I got to spend 3 wonderful years doing that. I support everything the college does, and I really appreciate y'all ensuring that we have a trained and ready workforce for the future.
Thank you. I'll say this for Mr. Napper because he's modest, but he will. I've heard him say this in the past. He is the only. I know.
He's not modest.
He is the only chair in the history of the college not to be from Sumter. So the fact that you have the chairman from Kershaw is really a big thing, and he's been chair since I've been there.
He's a good man.
Thank you,
he's
Dr.
not
Pollard.
modest.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Thompson, any other questions or comments? So I'll wrap up then by saying it's been a joy to work with both of you gentlemen on these various companies that we've been recruiting and showing them how great Kershaw County is. Yes, these are confidential at the moment. These are very proprietary interests that companies have and where they might move or what they might do. But I am encouraged by the prospect of having regional training facilities for some of the top companies in the whole world here. So that serves people who already have jobs and need to be recertified in their particular job regionally in South Carolina or adjacent North Carolina or Georgia or Tennessee areas. But also, the training that you would look at would heavily benefit Woolard. I was just talking with Director Morris last night on some of these opportunities, and you're talking about sophomores, juniors, and seniors being exposed to this right across from their campus between the dual enrollment credit and program and then direct exposure to working on some of the coolest stuff that's out there in the world. Top technology, top equipment, top training. You know, it really puts Kershaw County on the map in many significant ways. And so I thank you for that. There's no doubt that Kershaw County invests in education between the millage that you've been allotted to help with scholarships and otherwise and the requests you have about the scholarship program to focusing on these training facilities and training opportunities. That brings jobs in. And just for one more general point, I'm really excited about it because the FELO funds result in a benefit to everyone without additional or significant residential increase. Just as an example, we calculated FILO revenue coming in over the last 2 years to 18 months, and then that's going to trend towards the end of 2025. Investing in education, this is going to be over $1 million that looks like it's going to go towards the school district, and then some comparable fund based on different calculations that will go to the county because businesses are coming and locating here. And so they're bringing jobs in. That 10,000, 12,000 people I keep harping on that leave every day and work somewhere else far away, they get to work here now. And then the students coming up, we don't have to experience the brain drain and have them go to some other community and take the great moral compass that hopefully we've raised them with here in Kershaw County, at least that I've witnessed with many of the students. And so I just wanted to share that and say thank you again for those who participate in the foundation and the others in the room affiliated with Central Carolina. And no pun intended, Central Carolina is central to all development prospects in Kershaw County in a positive way. Gentlemen, any other comments or questions? Okay,
Appreciate
thank
your
you so
time.
much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Maybe they can get an arts program in for 2 years.
What's that?
An arts, music and arts, that would have saved me $100,000.
Save you some. Okay, gentlemen, that takes us to item number 9A, approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Cato, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Thompson has a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. Ms. Hannah, it's unanimous. The minutes are approved. All right, gentlemen, that takes us to item number 10A. This is going to be third reading on one that we've obviously read 2 times before and had the public hearing just earlier tonight. This is the Airport Overlay District amendment and codification in the zoning. I'd seek a motion. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve third reading of the AOD.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Shoemake, we've got a motion and a second. You have the floor, Mr. Tomlinson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion that we amend. I have 3 amendments that I would like to include at their public hearing or meetings with the public, again, between staff, public. We've had the opportunity to sit down a few times. I have 3 additional amendments I would like to do. 2 of them are kind of just housekeeping, and 1 is an amendment, and I will go through kind of Mr. Jones at their first reading requested that we really break it down line by line, and I agree, it really helps with the transparency with the public. So I will break it down line by line, and then I will ask for a second, and I will give some commentary regarding the 3.
Quick point for clarification. Are you making a motion to take the 3 at once?
At once, yes.
Okay. You got the floor.
I move to amend the AOD text as follows. In section 3.7, subsections 1 through 6, titled Permits, insertion of additional language so that the current sentence, approval of such submissions shall take into account the presence of airport land use zones and airport safety zones, will now read, approval of such submissions shall take into account the presence of airport land use zones and airport safety zones, and all submissions shall, to the extent practical, locate structures in the least restrictive zone and as far as possible from the airport runway surface and aircraft flight paths. My next amendment, in section 3-7, subsection 1-8.3, titled Non-Conforming Uses Abandoned and Destroyed, in the additional of the following sentence. The abandonment and discontinuance time limitations of this section are not applicable to existing bona fide residences that become non-conforming due to these AOD restrictions. Amendment number 3, adding a C2 conditional to Table 3-19A for accessory uses to residential uses in Zone A. Mr. Chairman, I now ask for a second, and then I can expand on.
I'll second.
There's a second on the Tomlinson amendment. You still have the floor.
So the first amendment that I have, as I said, it's just a clerical error, kind of a housekeeping note. In the section titled Permits, is to further watch over safety concerns and quality of life concerns by requiring, when practical, that new structures be sited on the safest portion of the property when considering flight paths and safety zones uses. This is not a requirement. It is put in there as a use of safety, just for existing noise, as we said tonight. with a lot of the people who've spoke. It's for quality of life purposes going forward. The next amendment is the grandfather amendment. This amendment in section non-conforming uses or abandoned or destroyed provides further protection for existing bona fide residences that would become nonconformities under this ordinance. Most of the residences that would become nonconformities under this ordinance have been around for decades. A home is the most important thing most people will own and is our refuge and where our family memories are made. I believe that allowing existing residential uses to continue as nonconformities without further worry of the 3-year timeline of outage is a fair and balanced policy in consideration to preservation and protecting existing residential uses. The last amendment, which is the C2 conditional use and accessories to residential uses in Zone A, was intended to be one in the second reading amendments. When I had about 4 pages worth of amendments that I'd lined out, I've skipped over that. I apologize. This is included just to clarify that second reading amendment. Amendments that I advanced but simply overlooked in the long list. This amendment is for policy consistency as C2 condition has been applied to all conditional uses allowed in Zone A. Mr. Chairman, I would further like to say that I really appreciate all of staff's hard work, as I said before. I appreciate all the community and their input. I've had conversations with people that I have never talked to regarding and would not have the chance to talk to. This has all been a community-based ordinance. Every single decision, every minute of time spent on this ordinance has been based upon the residents' concerns. I have really enjoyed working with each one of you. I know our staff has worked tirelessly hard, working hours that would not have been if we wouldn't have had this AOD, to put together a community ordinance that is best for the airport to coincide while we protect and preserve our natural resources, our heritage of our community, especially the equine community. And then we have one of our beautiful state parks here, not far from the airport, Goodall State Park. We have some beautiful streams and creeks that run right through that area. This is all an ordinance that helps protect and preserve our natural resources. At first reading, I agree it was not perfect. I do think now we have worked hard to make sure that we have answered and addressed every concern that the citizens have had, and I am very glad to stamp my name on this third reading and approval of it.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Shoemake, you have the second.
Yeah, just very briefly, I appreciate all the comments, not just today, but I think there's been, Mr. Templar, 5 community meetings on this, 4 or 5?
I think we ended up with 7 or 8.
Okay, 7 or 8. I mean, that's a lot, and it should be. This is a big ordinance that helps protect our airport, but also it protects those homes, it protects horse country, it protects those farms. I think the amendments do all the things that we talked about, and then today's amendment addresses the one concern Ms. Conto raised, and it grandfathers in most of that, if not all those uses. I want to point out too, to those who think that this is unnecessary, and I respect that opinion. Again, it's an agree to disagree situation, but I would note that very recently we had a very large subdivision that was built. Planning Commission said no to, in part because of the airport overlay that hadn't been fully developed yet, because it was in our comp plan and wasn't done. And, there was a lawsuit. The county lost that lawsuit. Without going into the legal stuff, the reality is a large development now exists because we didn't have a proper AOD. And those large developments are going to continue to come. And what we don't want is neighborhoods right next to the airport in very dense populations right next to the airport. And that's what we get without an AOD. So I appreciate everybody. And the last thing I just want to say is obviously every citizen that came out that's participated, this is because of them. But 3 very specific people I'd like to just say thank you to is my fellow councilman Brant Tomlinson, who's taken the lead on this project. Our planning commission chairman, Ned Towell, who's also taken a lot of time and attention on this, and our entire staff, but particularly Mr. Gerald Blanchard, who's been sort of the staff lead on that. These 3 gentlemen came together to make a very, very good AOD that will stand the test of time and protect our airport. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemake. Mr. Jones, yes.
If I may, and that is much better, Mr. Thompson, but I have some questions. What about when we talk about the grandfather and we talk about a 3-year term? Explain the difference in the 2. explain, give me some explanation, clarification on each one of them.
Mr. DeBose, can I get a legal definition of that?
So often nonconformities will have these discontinuance timeout periods. You'll recall at second reading, a amendment was approved that pushed that to a 3-year time period. Members of the community have expressed concern that even 3 years on a discontinuance might impact someone's home. They're trying to sell it or it's tied up in probate, that they would run the risk of a 3-year discontinuance of use causing that home not to be viable as a single-family residence anymore. This amendment that Mr. Tomlinson is advancing, as I understand it, would remove that timeout period. Non-conforming single-family residences are already allowed to be rebuilt under the base ZLDR regulations, even if completely destroyed. The base ZLDR treats non-residential uses in a different way as far as destruction, but this essentially means that those non-conforming homes are allowed to stay unless those people decide to leave.
And that was my next question. So when they decide to leave, what happens?
Well, right now, a home could sit vacant for 4 years and then be reoccupied, and it would be fine. I mean,
There's a horse farm.
Yeah, yes, the homes, accessory structures that are in existence are conditional uses.
What about people buying property out there and they build new barns?
New barns right now under this ordinance are treated as a conditional use with the hurdle that SCAC be consulted, the South Carolina Aeronautics Commission, to make sure that that use does not create a hazard to airport operations or...
So it's up in the air.
Well, I think it's probably a fairly low bar given the, mainly for the topography of that area. A lot of these properties are kind of below grade for the airport.
And it's a conditional use in all zones, correct? So zone A, B1, B2, C, is conditional use within all zones.
Yes, other than zone B, which is pretty permissive, yes.
Thank you.
A, B1, B2, and C, correct.
So if you want to have a horse in any of the zones or structure.
Thank you. And let me finish up here right quickly. What about the taking of property?
I think a taking of properties adjudicated.
Well, eminent domain, is there anybody that's beneath the overlay district? Are they in jeopardy of having to get out of their home or relocate?
I understand at present, no one is. I mean, I'm not aware of any funding plans or...
Mr. Jones, if I may.
Go ahead, as long as I still had the floor.
Mr. Jones yields.
To further your question, I had a phone call from Congressman Ralph Norman's office. It was an 84-year-old woman who was very upset, very kind, sweet lady. She wanted to know if she had to move out of her home. The congressman's office wanted somebody local to bring it to everyone's attention and to consult with her and explain what the airport overlay district means to her and her home. I don't have her address on me. I do have her name. I do know that she lives on Red Fox Road. She's widowed. She's 84, and she was basically terrified that she may lose her home. My question for you is this. Is there a list of names and tax map numbers currently in the AOD that could potentially be taken? Is there a list?
Russell, the property is 550 Red Fox Lane.
The airport overlay district is distinct from the airport improvement plan. I mean, there's no list within the airport overlay district ordinance. I believe there are some capital improvement plans that have been discussed with the public that were approved by FAA that have property acquisitions, potential property acquisitions far out. But again, those acquisitions, as Mr. Templer's explained to the public, are contingent on county funding matches, and y'all control the county purses. No council can bind future councils. I can't promise what will happen 20 years from now or 8 years from now, but and I can certainly defer to the administrator on those details. But yeah, there's a a publicly available document, capital improvement plan, that's been discussed quite a bit, that does have earmarked far into the future potential property acquisitions. But I think those would only be triggered by, again, other improvements that would require council funding as well. So,
is there an amendment that requires the property owner's full agreement without a taking?
So anytime a local government tries to acquire property, they first contact the property owners to try to acquire it at arm's length. If that doesn't occur, the Eminent Domain Procedures Act in South Carolina does allow a process where the government can initiate an action to acquire property. But that requires that an appraisal be produced, provided to the landowner ahead of time. And if they object to the appraisal, they're free to hire an appraiser themselves or just come and give their opinion on value to a court.
Here's what I'm getting at. Yeah. This 84-year-old widow doesn't want to have to do all that. And I don't want her to have to do all that. And my words to her would, she would leave her house over my dead body. And that is my rub with this airport overlay district. Everything that has been said and everything that Brant's done has been positive. But if it's one person that could be potentially forced out of their home, this sweet lady's 84 years old. My grandmother's 97. She's been widowed since 2011. If anybody dared touch her property, they'd have one hell of a fight on their hands. And it doesn't need to be her. Let's be real clear when we're talking about personal property and how this could affect others. If it was your grandmother, how would you feel? I want each and every one of you to ask yourself that question tonight. We need to understand what we're doing. We need to understand what this could do in the future. Who's going to be 84 in a decade when it's a new council? When they do decide, thank you, Councilman Jones, you will be 84 in a decade. That is correct. My point in saying this is, I was in tears by the end of the conversation. This is tough. This isn't something I can agree to. And if you can, that's okay. Everyone, maybe you have a more complex understanding of the document, but if I understand that there's a potential taking of anyone's home, much less an elderly person, that's just flat out wrong. I yield.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jones, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Councilman Brazel, I appreciate that, those words. And let me say something else, too. I don't usually brag on members of county council, but they usually brag on me. But the thing is, I commend him. He was been in Hawaii for 7 days. He flew in at 4:30. He was in Atlanta a couple hours before this meeting, and he flew in to make sure he was here because this issue was important to him with Red Fox Road. Now, I want to just a couple more questions. What about the flashing lights that this beautiful couple were talking about when they stood up?
The AOD doesn't put the flashing lights out there or control that at all. The AOD doesn't affirmatively acquire anyone's property either. That's a litigation that would have to be initiated at some later date, but the AOD is not designed or triggering a purchase of property.
But it opens a door.
Here I am. Here's where I'm at. So we can, for time's sake, because I'm not going to change my mind. Well, first off, let me say this, and I want everybody to hear this. There's been mention of trying to do things at the airport so it can be self-sufficient. I don't think there's an airport that's compared to that is owned by counties or cities that is profitable in the state of South Carolina, based on some information that I was told. And I know Mr. Temple and I appreciate his looking into it for me when I asked him to and giving me some of that information. And also the fact that we want to keep our airport. We'd never have been in jeopardy of losing our airport. There's no talk of us losing our airport, and I don't think that was going to be, that's not even in the equation. But here's where I'm at, and I'm going to stop. If my colleagues can get these folks who live on that road who are directly affected by this issue, I'll vote for it. Other than that, if these folks who are impacted by it don't support it, I'm not going to support it. But thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council,
Thank you
for your time.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Thompson, before I recognize you, anyone else that hasn't spoken yet?
I've spoken.
Okay. Mr. Cato? I'm good. Mr. Thompson, go ahead.
Yeah, and those, Russell, I appreciate. So Russell also sent me Miss Bobby Snyder's number, and I had a wonderful conversation with her for a while. She lives at 550 Red Fox Road. And Mr. Jones, to your point, this is about land use. This is not about the airport expansion. Has nothing to do with lights or anything else. This is about land use and preventing high density development within critical zones of the airport. Nothing more. Not about taking of property. Has nothing to do with any of that. And if I can get some clarification, so the last time the airport expanded was in the late 2010 timeframe, is that right?
2014.
2014. And at that point, that would have been an agreement to where they went to property owners and purchased property upon an agreement of taking, as we discussed. There was no AOD in place, and that happened. This right here is strictly a land use regulation, and is for a reason of preventing high-density development. Nothing further than that. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Shoemake, yes, sir.
Yeah, just to be really direct in case it got kind of lost, and the airport improvement plan is a totally separate thing than what we're discussing. That's the document you were just talking about that that, as Mr. DuBose pointed out, would have these contractual arrangements. There is nothing in this AOD that makes it easier or harder for airports to acquire property. It has no role in that. So you ask, does it make it easier? There's nothing in this AOD that makes it easier or harder for an airport to acquire property. That's the airport improvement plan process, which is a totally separate thing that isn't before us. I just want to make that clear.
I have a question.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and then I think I'll be wrapped up. Would you consider postponing this third reading and meeting with the folks on Red Fox Road to make sure they have a clear understanding of what they're looking at before you pass it?
If you're asking me, I think 7 meetings is enough.
Yeah. And I think I've talked about everybody on the road.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just, that's where I'm at. I'm asking, would y'all be willing to do that? To sit down with every concerned citizen on Red Fox Road for one last time, talk to them, see if you, because if you can convince them, you can convince me. You know, when I ran for office 19 years ago, since we're all going to brag on ourselves and talk about it, I'm going to talk about me for a second. Bottom line is, I said 19 years ago, I'm going to, run, and it's not going to be about my agenda, it's going to be the people's agenda. And, I'll truly believe in my heart, and I can say this because I don't need y'all's vote anymore. So I say this from my heart, it's the same thing I've always felt. I feel like God put us on this earth to serve, not be served. And I think too often we get in political positions or get in positions of authority. And bureaucrats and politicians think, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, I'm just saying facts. Bureaucrats and politicians think they'll resolve every issue. They got to spend money and inquire regulation to be successful. And that's exactly the two things I don't stand for, is spending a lot of money and creating more regulations and making it hard for people in our community to build a shed or to worry about their properties because the government's going to come in and, form some kind of overlay district or whatever. I think the airport needs it. I do, and I support our airport. I'm one of the reasons the Airport Commission is still in existence, myself and Sammy Tucker. So you're welcome, Airport Commission, because you wouldn't be here if Sammy Tucker and myself hadn't fought to keep y'all. And Ron Prestage even stated to that, and Kirby Tupper many, many years ago. And y'all do a great job. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman of the Airport Commission. You do a great job, and you're a good neighbor. And we're just going to disagree on this one. But anyway, thank you so much. But I stick that out there, that if y'all want to have a group meeting, I would certainly be there with you guys and talk to people. We'll see what we can do.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any further comments and discussion? Okay, I'll wrap up the comments or discussion, and we still haven't been able to reach Mr. Tucker tonight.
No, sir, it's a connectivity issue.
So if anybody was going to take some property from someone's grandma, I'd be right there with whoever wanted to fight about it and utilize every single wrestling and athletic capability I have to whoop that person, to say it lightly. My grandma, as long as we're talking about grandmas, actually grew up not too far from where the airport is, and her grave's not far from there either. And so no one's trying to take anything from anybody's grandma. That's either just a misunderstanding or misconception of what the vote is actually about tonight. There is no eminent domain takings or other vote that's occurring right now for actual eminent domain and purchase of property. As Mr. Tomlinson explained, the county can have a vote on any piece of property in the future. Someone made the motion and aligned with state law to try and do that, but that's not how this council operates. This is, in some ways, thinking on what Mr. Jones just said, this is a piece of regulation that, while we may not like it entirely, is necessary. Think about stormwater regulation. We don't like regulation, but due to a lack of stormwater regulation over an extended period of time, we've got several communities in Kershaw County that are having issues. And so we are now trying to figure out the best way to formulate stormwater regulation to make sure that new developments, as they come, don't have those same problems, that people's property is better protected and more secure. And so having poured through this and trying to catch up for the short period of time relatively that I've been on council, I know a lot of work has gone into this. I can support it tonight on third reading. I think it's necessary. I think amendments have been made to accommodate existing uses or those which would be grandfathered in the future. And for that reason, I would support it tonight. Any other comments or discussion before we vote? All in favor, raise your hand.
We're voting on the amendment.
Yeah, we're voting on the Tomlinson amendment first, and then we'll get to as amended if it passes. So all in favor of the Tomlinson amendment, raise your hand. Shoemake, Connell, Cato, and Tomlinson in favor. Ms. Hannah, all opposed? Mr. Jones and Mr. Brazel. All right, now we've got the third reading as amended from the Tomlinson amendment. It's still the Tomlinson motion on the original. Any further discussion on that before we take it to a vote? Seeing none, we go to a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. Shoemake, Connell, Cato, and Tomlinson in favor. All opposed? Mr. Brazel and Mr. Jones opposed. Ms. Hannah, for the record, it passes on third reading. All right, gentlemen, that takes us to item number 10B, another third reading. This is what we've known as the FELO approval on CREED under relevant state laws. Project CREED is the solar project that has been mentioned in previous meetings and tonight. Do we have a motion?
I would make a motion that we adopt it on third reading.
Mr. Shoemake has a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Tomlinson has a second. Mr. Shoemake.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment. Specifically, I'd like to move to amend Project CREED's FELO ordinance and that exhibit to the FELO ordinance in the form labeled on the agenda package, which is in the agenda package as proposed third reading version of the Project CREED FELO ordinance and FELO agreement, identifying the project sponsor as CREED Solar LLC and populating the FELO agreement with final terms and property descriptions. And I can explain if I get a second.
Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll make a second.
Mr. Brazel has a second. I understand this is essentially a housekeeping motion.
It is, Mr. Chairman. Basically, as we do with these projects, this is in the agenda packet in front of everyone, but basically this just actually plugs in all these final terms and makes sure that every T's crossed and I's dotted. So it plugs in, for example, the project sponsor and the specific property descriptions into the ordinance itself.
Yeah, and essentially in the draft documents, CREED Solar LLC has not been fully identified, and this amendment would handle that. Okay, any other questions or comments on the amendment? Mr. Brazel, you have the second?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Councilman Shoemake for clarifying everything. I was unaware of the clarification needs, so I appreciate you doing that.
Yes, sir.
All right, seeing no further discussion or questions, we'll move the Shoemake amendment to a vote. All in favor? It is Mr. Shoemake, Mr. Brazel, Mr. Connell, Mr. Tomlinson in favor. All opposed? Mr. Cato and Mr. Jones opposed. So the amendment passes. That takes us to third reading as amended. Any further discussion, questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Cato?
could we just for the public, could we get exactly what would be the yearly income to the county on this project? And the number of years that this project's going to exist?
Mr. Burgess?
They should have that.
Did you get the question, Jeff?
Yes, sir. It was the yearly amount and the number of years.
I know it's based off of a megawatt, so if you would
Yes,
share
sir.
the...
It's 3,800 per megawatt produced, so it's 48 megawatts. You're looking at $182,400 per year. And the time period for that is a 40-year timeline.
40 years?
I believe so. That's how we ran the numbers.
Who's going to be here in 40 years?
So
Sorry, Mr. Cato still has the floor. Anything else?
I thought that this was a 30-year timeline when we started. I've not heard anything about 40 years.
I can double check. One of the projects was, and I could very simply have just mistransposed it, so.
And while we're doing that, maybe there's a, so what percentage of this philo goes to the school district? What percentage do we have of that?
It depends on how the breakout comes from the treasurer's office. So you're looking at.
It could be anywhere from 40 to 60%.
40 to 60%.
Based on, now I've just been pouring over the numbers recently on other projects, and depending on the type of equipment, type of investment, and how it gets reported to DOR, it could be anywhere from 40 to 60%.
And this is a little bit more than half a mil.
Well, no, this is based off megawatt.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he said $180,000.
That is a correction on 30 years.
30 years?
Yes, sir.
It's 40 in the document.
Okay. That would be something that we'd probably have to look at correcting.
Would you like to make an amendment? Would you like for one of us to make an amendment to change that tonight so we can move forward?
I would recommend.
Okay, I'll propose a amendment on page 3 of the Creed Philo agreement that the phase exemption period be 30 years instead of 40 years.
Second.
One moment. We do have a motion and a second, but we also have representatives from the company present.
Yes, sir.
And I just want to make sure that any amendments align with the negotiation that's already occurred with you all, or if we need to take an executive
I'd
session
like you to
discuss.
align with what we have in front of us in the ordinance.
That's correct, but you can't bind a company to
I'd
something
ask that we just bring them up and ask.
That's fine, too, on third reading. Yeah, just 1 second.
My name is Dayton Riddle, and I'm an attorney representing the company. The original negotiation was for a 40-year term, and that's been consistent over the drafting of the documents throughout the entire process.
Well,
So it is 40 years.
It was just misspoken. I'll withdraw my motion. Leave it at 40.
Okay, and so I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, because we had a motion and a second before I put it on the table. If you're going to withdraw your motion, is everyone satisfied with the documents as stated?
With the 40-year term, the company is satisfied.
Okay, and Mr. Cato, I want to make sure.
I don't understand why there's a difference between the two. I was under the understanding it was 30, and then I seen it 40 in the documents, and that's why I questioned it. So, I mean, I just want to make sure that whatever you do, it's done right.
I just want to track down, I mean, where'd you get that understanding from, just so we can make sure?
Well, from all the meetings.
Sure?
It may have been a verbal, and I mean, I don't blame Councilman Cato at all. I mean,
all the previous ones have been for 30 years. So.
Yeah, and you've had, I mean, before I got here, you had three or four.
That came before.
That came through, none of which had the actual interconnection agreement.
Correct.
Other philo agreements are only for 20, so.
20 and 40, or 20 and 30.
Yeah. But some are renewable, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So upon further discussion, just to clarify, on the outset, legally you are allowed to do a 40-year term under the terms of the fee agreement, or under the terms of the fee statute. You're allowed to do a 40-year term. Obviously, the company would prefer to do a 40-year term if that's something that the county council is amenable to. If they're not amenable to it, the company would accept 30 years. However, they would much prefer a 40-year term if that's okay with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the reasons previously stated, I don't think we're going to lose this deal tonight, based on, and we just want to make sure you're understanding that no one's made a misrepresentation to you, Mr. Cato, because it definitely lands in your area. And so you'll be reporting to folks on potential votes or not and how it impacts the area. I personally have no objection to an additional 10 years of philo in an area that's next to an existing farm, unlikely for residential development, already has an interconnection agreement, and will result in an additional $182,000, if I heard that correctly, to Kershaw County. Any other questions or comments after the withdrawal of Vice Chairman Brazel?
No, I'll withdraw it. The reason I made the motion was due to the concern, but it's merely a contractual thing. It's not going to look any different. It's not going to feel any different. It's not going to make a different impact on the community. So I'm okay with 40 years, and I can support that tonight. No problems at all.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? And y'all have to hold my hand 1 second. Did we vote on the Shoemake amendment?
We did, and it passed.
Okay, that's what I thought. I had a check mark right here. I want to make sure, though.
It passed 4-2.
Because y'all threw me a little bit of curveball. The other thing I want to mention before we go to a final vote is I was really glad that Mr. Bell came out tonight. So I have beef cattle, which I try to do as a business, but I have completely amateur bees. I've got the stings and pictures of stings to prove how amateur and how much I thought I could just pull one of these YouTube moments and go out there and be one with the bees and be zen, and it don't work that way, at least not for me. Maybe it's the way I smell, I don't know. But I tell you what, after we started doing bees on our little family farm, we put in 4 hives, the production of fruits and vegetables and virtually anything that would need pollination, it just tripled. It was amazing to me. And I'm really excited that you have this opportunity in Kershaw County to expand bee production, pollination. We've planted perennial flowers, and I've actually consumed lots of bell honey at the farmer's market or otherwise. We've come into it and use it regularly on biscuits and toast and all kinds of recipes. And so I was really glad to see that a local business could work with Creed Solar on this to have a pollination field that's going to benefit not just that area, but they will travel quite far. As I've noticed mine, whenever the flowers die down in my area, they're going over to the neighbors' properties and hitting various flowering trees or plants. And so I think that was a great addition to this project as well. Any other questions or comments before we pull it to a vote? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Burgess. All in favor of passing on third reading the philo amendment as amended, raise your hand. We've got Mr. Shoemake, Mr. Brazel, Connell, and Tomlinson in favor. All opposed. We've got Mr. Cato and Mr. Jones opposed. For the record, Ms. Hannah, thank you. All right, gentlemen, that takes us to item 10C. This is going to be second reading. This will touch on laser form. I'll just give a brief summary, but it's a joint multi-county business park with Lee County as required by state law for SSRC credits and philos and otherwise. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Brazel has the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Jones has the second. Mr. Brazel, you have the floor.
This is, again, just one of those technicalities that we have to do to create a multi-county business park. It's more of a paper trail. I think, was it 99% goes to Kershaw County and 1% to Lee?
Correct.
Is that that's some sort of state law that we have to follow? Is that?
It's standard 99.1. I mean, I've seen 97.3 or 98. I mean, but the gold standard is 99.
But this is something as a county we have to do.
Yeah, to place the property into a multi-county park and to allow the
Yeah.
industry to reap those benefits, yes.
It's a technicality. Thank you.
And Lee County, for what it is worth, is passing a counterpart ordinance. They also have to bring it into the joint park by ordinance as well.
Thank you. Good neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. Brazel. Any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote on second reading. All in favor on second reading?
We get a second?
Yeah, I thought you had a
Jimmy
second.
seconded.
Yeah, Jimmy seconded.
Okay.
All in favor on second reading, raise your hand As written. Ms. Hannah, it's unanimous for those who are present. Thank you. All right, gentlemen, that takes us to item number 11A. Placed on the agenda by Councilman Jones, representative from Engineering Study for Pecan Orchard. Is there a motion?
I so make the motion.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Shoemake seconds. Mr. Jones, you have,
Russell walked out at the right time.
what's your motion? Or is it just to have someone come up and speak?
Yeah, first of all, let me say this. I make the motion that we have a representative from the engineering study come up, we'll speak to him, and there's the possibility of a vote. Possibility.
So you'll be making a subsequent motion?
Yes.
Well, do we need, I don't think we need a motion for Mr. Jones to ask a representative of the county to come up here and speak. I think you just do it.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you know, here's the thing too, you know, the chairman and I talked, and I had it under discussion, but we talked about leaving it all under new business, you know, for the sake of time and cleaning things up a little bit too, as well as long as we were able to get the information out there that I was interested in. So
So all in favor of having this representative come up, raise your hand.
Well, just a quick point of order. Do we have to have, I mean, I just, for future business, I mean, I don't think that, is that required? I mean, since he's got a second and it's on the floor?
Yes.
Can't he ask someone to come up without a vote?
As I understand it, we are required to. We haven't voted on having the person coming up. Otherwise, a council member in particular could have 50 items on the agenda.
Right, but I'm saying, like, asking someone to come up and speak to an issue under discussion, that doesn't require a vote.
I think it was going to tie directly to a funding request later, which is, I think, the subsequent vote.
Yeah, exactly. Mr. Shoemaker, I want to thank you very much for your concern on that and trying to clear that up. But I think Mr. Chairman's got us on this one. I actually think your decision.
And then, of course, I'll defer to Mr. DeBose.
Well, yeah, but I'm going to lead it off. Go ahead.
My understanding has been consolidated under this for the purpose of a potential vote coming out of it, rather than have a discussion and then rediscussing it under new business for any potential votes. It was essentially combined.
I'm going to start it off.
The question directly is, vote required for a particular person to come up and present prior to any request for funds?
No, I don't think so under a discussion item.
Okay, there we'll go. All right, so you've got the floor, Mr. Jones.
Okay, and I may amend that discussion item to take a vote. Probably will, but you don't know what my amendment will be yet. Some while back, you know, we were talking about the stormwater and the pecan orchard, and I had asked Mr. Templer, do we have them on, do you have some pictures on the screen? I wanted to, yeah, this is the pecan orchard. I don't know if you guys can see it in the audience, but it's on your screen. And this was after one of the storms they've had. I've seen it like this quite a few times. As you see, you have two animals over there, and I believe this home, this may be where the septic tank was filled and overran. And if you got another, can you move to another slide? Because I want to move along quite quickly. Look at this. This looks like a pond. And this is coming down the road, and it's almost in some way, it's part of someone's front yard as well, too. It just bleeds over into it. Go to another one. Here's another. This is Niagara Falls. And that is, well, that is absolutely almost where somebody's driveway is. Got another slide. As you can see, the water running down, how strong the water is and how it's tearing up everything in its path. Keep moving. Okay, let's stay right there for a second. Folks, listen, here's where we're at. Back in 1998, 1999, the county took the pecan orchard under its jurisdiction. Mr. Templer, this county council, we all inherited it. Okay, now we've got some stormwater issues, and they've gotten worse. When you've got people's homes that their foundations are weakening, that their septic tanks are running over because the water is flowing over top of it. When we have a subdivision like this, that their quality of life, not only that, the possible mold that has gotten into some of them's homes, causing sickness. And yet, I do appreciate the fact that whenever this first occurred, Mr. Templer said, I'm going to declare a stormwater emergency with this neighborhood, because bottom line is we got $2.3 million into stormwater. We had 2.6, but we took $300,000 out to go ahead and pay for our study, which is what we have here tonight. And that's why I wanted the engineer here as well to talk about it. But this is what this subdivision has been faced with. And I would be absolutely great with making a motion and passing the 1.2 and go ahead and follow every guideline that this engineer firm did for us. It's a $200,000 study, and I just don't want to see another study go sit on the shelf and collect dust. You know, there's a sense of urgency here, you know, just by nature. You know, nature controls it, but there's a sense of urgency here. And I'll ask you, as Mr. Brazel so eloquently said about his grandmother, a beautiful lady. And I also knew Chairman Cornell's grandmother, what a beautiful lady she was as well. But I'll ask you in the same manner, what if it was your home? What if you lived out there? Now, every home is not affected the same, but I think you know, as I said, when Mr. Templer offered to do that, the council decided, no, we we're going to do a study, so we pulled $200,000 out. I believe, was it 200 or 300, Mr. Templer?
Well, there were two different items in there, and it was $300,000 or $285 that council authorized me to spend, and that was a stormwater study that was conducted as it relates to stormwater problems overall in Kershaw County. And then we had the engineering for Pecan Orchard that went forward, so that's going to be the bulk of that funding.
Gotcha.
It was like $130,000 that was for Pecan Orchard, and the balance was for the.
Yeah.
I think it might have been inverse.
Overall.
That was a smaller
Maybe it was.
for the study.
All right. Well, let me get to. Thank you, Mr. Both of you. Thank you very much. Listen. Here's where I'm at. We have maybe 5, 6 neighborhoods that council had reminded me of that have these stormwater issues. But I'll tell you this, there's not a single neighborhood in this county that is as bad as this. And somebody said, well, we got to figure out where to start. I said, you prioritize, you start with the worst, and then you keep moving forward till you get them all taken care of. You know, we have an obligation and responsibility to these families that are out there. And, you know, when I talk to a couple of neighbors and they say, well, Jimmy, nothing's going to change. We appreciate what you're doing, but nothing's going to change. They're not going to do anything. I mean, I'm just quoting what people say. I just can't let it sit there. I think this council is better than this. I think this county council cares about people. And that's why I know this county council will not vote with me to support doing this tonight. But that is exactly why I will make an amendment or whatever, a separate motion that will ask, after we hear from Mr. Temple and after we hear from the engineer, that the Finance Committee take this upon themselves and come back within 2 weeks with a plan, even if, and I know it's been talked about, I don't want a phase plan, but it's been talked about, but a plan or something back to this county council for us to take a vote. Folks, listen, this isn't personal, this is health, safety, and life. We talk about people's properties. All I'll ask is that each one of you out there, how would you like it if that was your front yard? Just think about it. And you know what's so crazy? And I said I'm going to do this. We'll find $10 million to do what we want to do with it. But we can't find the money, or we won't spend the money to do what's right for these folks in the Pecan Orchard. And yes, they're in District 4. That was brought up on this council. Well, that's in your, no, it's not in my dad blasted district. The whole county's my district. And it always has been, it always will be. But I feel like in my heart that these folks up here do care. I choose to believe that they do care, and that I don't want to get too personal with this. But I'm asking y'all to support this tonight, to go before the Finance Committee after we hear from the engineer, Ms. Templer, and that they come back to us within 2 weeks with a start or a completion or whatever. And that I would really appreciate. Mr. Templer, did you have someone here, a representative from the company?
I do. I have Joe and Dylan from Michael Baker International.
Could they come up, please?
Sure.
Mr.
Council,
Jones.
also, you will find in your emails, you've been sent a copy of this engineering report. I think it's all of 251 pages.
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
if I could
I'll yield to you. Go ahead.
If I could just ask you a question for clarification. I was involved in the community meetings with Gerald and Danny and myself and Councilman Jones. And it was my understanding that once we found a clear path forward, we were moving on it. Is that where we're at? Because it's been, I don't know, if it's been a few months now since we've discussed it. Can you give me clarification as to where we're at and how we're moving?
Well, the overall price is going to be something we're going to have to chew on. And, but that was the goal, was to get the engineering to understand the scope of the project, and these gentlemen can describe that to you tonight. I can tell you that the impact to all of the neighbors is just simply not there. But moving forward, this project has a price tag of around $1.2 million, which way exceeded what I thought. But fact remains, it's still a project. This is the reason why we have been serious with stormwater over the past few years. Of course, now, in all fairness, this was pre-stormwater,
Yeah, it's a different deal.
I don't get this confused with stormwater either.
Yeah, we can't compare this to the, I mean,
Thank you,
the way we develop property post-2000 versus how this was developed is night and day. We all know that. There's no detention pond, there's there's no way to carry water from a paved road to a detention pond. It's a dirt road. This is, there's a word for it, but I don't want to say it. This is a non-typical situation, a non-typical road structure, and it was probably built with a John Deere tractor and a box blade. Yes. So my recommendation was, this is a county road?
Yes.
Correct.
So my recommendation was after we surveyed and called 811 and all that fun stuff, is utilize county equipment to make the ditches bigger, crown the roads, and rock the roads. We could have probably done that for $200,000. I was looked at like I had two heads, and the idea was shot down. Said it simply wasn't going to happen. So here we are with an extra $1 million price tag. We've got to fix it. Here's where I'm at. I'm not afraid to tackle the project as a county. I'm not afraid to bring on additional help or short-term contract with someone to help dig. I mean, all we've got to do is dig ditches, crown roads, and put gravel out.
You got an engineer standing there, Mr. President.
Yeah, I know. I got one that I grew up with,
I know
too.
you did. I'm just joking. And you did a good job.
But my point being is, upon their recommendations, we can do the work, or we could pay somebody to do the work. Is that a fair statement?
I can assure you that we do not have the ability to do what they have outlined in this study in-house.
The intensity, in other words.
Correct, and because we have around 7 individuals on a good day that are out there doing ditch work and other types of things throughout the county.
And the concern was that it would draw away from that.
Sure.
But there's some companies, Mr. Brazel, local companies that could do it.
Well, I mean, I think we can do it. I think where there's a will, there's a way. I know we can do it. But let's hear from the gentleman that's here. Thank you for being here. Yep. We appreciate you being here.
Can you hear me okay?
Good job as well, too.
Thank you. So I guess just general overview of what we did or what we were asked to do. We looked at the neighborhood, analyzed the existing conditions, and then focused our efforts of what can the county do within their existing right-of-way to maximize storage and convey runoff to the ultimate outfalls and alleviate flooding on adjacent properties. So essentially what we've done is we've proposed various projects throughout the neighborhood to improve the stormwater and get it to their ultimate outfalls safely. And as part of this, what we've also in the process of doing is we're helping the county apply for South Carolina Rural Infrastructure Authority grant to help with some of the construction costs if successfully awarded. So that application is due to the RIA on March 17th. So we are actively helping prepare that to submit. So what that would ultimately entail is if successful, the RIA would cover 75% of construction costs, and the county would be on the hook for the additional 20%.
But we could start our work now and reimburse ourselves when the grant came in.
I'd have to check to verify with our grant folks for that answer.
Because we've kicked the can down the road, no pun intended, you guys did a great job, but we've kicked the can down the road time and time again, and this doesn't get any better. And these people, if it thunders outside, they start cringing. I mean, nobody should have to live like that. And you know, they bought their homes in good faith. Nobody told them this was going to happen. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anything else?
Mr. Jones, it was your motion. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Brazel, do you have anything else?
Oh, do you have more to speak on?
No, he's done.
I mean, I'm more than happy to answer questions, but.
Yeah, I got plenty of questions. Do you have like a three-phase like scope of work or single phase? What do you have as a proposal?
What we were originally scoped to do, so come up with prepare the original study, which is what we've done. That was kind of phase one. Phase two was then developing these projects, which we kind of also lumped into phase one to get ahead of it. So then phase two would be taking what we've presented, discussing with county, and then basically developing construction plans ready to be then constructed and built to improve the flooding within the neighborhood.
So would there be any problem with ditching Blackberry Place, Hollyberry, and the bottom third of Crabapple in phase one, and purchasing and developing a detention pond on 421, lot 421, and then later phase it to Plum Thicket and Guion's paved? So what do you see as far as a construction phase? Do you think we should do it in a single phase project?
So there's what we've kind of developed. There's three main outfalls within the neighborhood. So projects were kind of geared towards improvements within each of those outfalls. So there's one on Crabapple Way, kind of in between Hollyberry and the furthest western road. Drawing a blank on the name there.
Guion or Plum Thicket?
Sorry, between Plum Thicket and Hollyberry on Crabapple Way. There's outfall one. And then outfall two is by 417 and 419 Blackberry Place at the corner on the, I guess, southeastern side of the neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
And then up towards along Blackberry, there's an existing cross line pipe and runoff being conveyed kind of across that property on the corner just south of Latchicott. So those are the three main outfalls. So we had various projects proposed within each of the outfalls. So you could theoretically phase some of that work from a construction standpoint, but what we were ultimately proposing was to go ahead and show everything at once and not phase construction.
Well, I think if we can get a 75% grant, then that would be the way to do it, clearly, and do a single-phase construction. The bulk of the problem is sediment. Ditches are full. You got concrete boxes that are junction boxes that are full. There's no way for the water to move from point A to point B throughout the whole subdivision. So I had no idea that there was an opportunity for a 75% grant. I think that's wonderful, and I'm glad to hear that. When will we hear back if it's a March 17th deadline?
Yeah, they have an 8 to 10 week turnaround time on selections.
All right, well,
It's a long time.
That's a long time, but that's a lot of money. And if we can get a grant for
It's a lot of
$800 and
money.
some odd $1,000, it's worth it.
And I know, but you know what I'm, listen, this same situation could be in Bethune,
Hold on,
Danny.
Mr. Jones, please.
Yeah, I yield.
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
We were kind of going back and forth, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for your keeping us in line. Danny, this could, and I'm not picking you out to pick, but this could be in Bethune, and I feel the same way as I feel right now. This isn't about where it's located. This is about the people need help. We have an opportunity to help some folks. We won't be able to make it perfect, but we can certainly create and make their life somewhat better. And I just don't, I'll be honest with you, I just don't get the pullback. I don't understand the pullback, you know, on this is too much money. Because we certainly spend millions of dollars on whatever else we want to spend it on. But Mr. Brazel, that's where I'm at. Thank you for your input, and thank you for driving that area and looking at it and checking it out. And I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, well, we're in it together. I want to see it happen too. I mean, I'm right there with you. But if there is in fact an opportunity to cover that much of the project through a grant, then I am for that, and I am for moving as quickly as possible.
And we could pay ourselves if we could even pay ourselves back. We could start immediately.
And he could let us know that question.
Yes,
maybe.
I'll check it on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great to hear back on that.
And what
Thank
I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, if I could, since I still basically have the floor. Well, I do have the floor. Is here from Mr. Templer, if he has anything he would like to say pertaining to this.
So just, I was sent a text that if we start the work prior to award of the grant, then we will not be eligible for reimbursement.
Yeah, well, then we need to wait.
We will not, we will not be.
No, sir. And that's, you know, we would have to, on that grant piece, we just met on this the other day with Michael Baker and,
he didn't know
my
that.
staff.
You
We
didn't know
have,
that? Or you did know that?
I'm sorry, we have the obligation to identify those funds, the grant match, in writing to the RIA. So just to let council know, if we choose to go further down this grant path, that I'll need some sort of either tacit approval or voting approval. I'll leave that to Mr. DeBose to allow me to identify those funds and commit those funds to this grant if we go down this road.
When is the deadline?
March 17th is the submittal date.
Hey, Mr. Shoemaker, think about this. You know, what if we don't get the grant? You're just gonna forget about the folks?
Oh, no, we're gonna cross that bridge when we get to it, but I don't wanna miss an opportunity for $800 and some odd $1,000. I mean, it just doesn't make good business sense.
So
But, I mean, I've been with Mr. Jones since the beginning. We're gonna figure this out. There's no question.
Gentlemen, let's let other council members have an opportunity to be heard who haven't been heard yet. Any other comments or questions?
Well, I was just going to say our next
Mr. Schmidt?
meeting, yeah, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, go ahead.
Our next meeting is March 11th. So what I would suggest, and in line with what Mr. Jones said earlier, is, you know, have it go to the finance committee. We can take a look at where funds are, talk to staff, talk to Mr. Temple, come back with a recommendation, of course, subject to your approval. And then obviously we could take a vote on the 11th on whether to approve and how much to approve for a 25% to hold back for the grant.
Matching.
And then on the 11th, then we submit the grant on the 18th. I can tell you personally, I could not support any funding expenditure knowing that there's a grant out there. And I know that we hate waiting, but I mean, we gotta see if we can get grant money because that changes everything.
As long as we're gonna do something.
Yeah.
Mr. Cato.
I agree with Mr. Jones. We've got to do something. I've never
Appreciate
denied that. I also agree with both of you. And I agree that I think that this does need to go to the Finance Committee to have a proactive approach between now and the time that we look into this funding. So I personally think that's the way we need to go.
And as a reminder, my recollection of the rules is we don't need a vote to send something to finance. Mr. Jones, you've already asked for it, so that's a referral to finance, and we'll get in touch with Mr. Tucker and make sure that that happens.
Thank you. What I'd like to say, Mr. Chairman, to the people that are affected by this is that we're not going to forget you. We're not going to kick the can down the road. I know you may think that's what's happened tonight, but it isn't. I believe this council is truly, truly committed to figuring out how to start, and I'm going to believe in that till I see otherwise. So thank you, colleagues, for that. And I'd like to just make sure that my neighbors and my friends just, I hate to use trust, but to trust me that it's not going to fall by the wayside. Something like Mr. Brazel said, Danny said, something, and even Derek, something's got to be done. So let us exhaust the bureaucracy. Let us look into the grant, and we will be doing something soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Thompson, anything?
I do not.
Okay. Just two questions I have for staff primarily. When will the overall study be complete? I understand we have some engineering or specific engineering done on Peach Orchard, but is there any other remaining study portions to be done?
Jonathan, get the status of that. He was working closely with the group.
Mr. Chairman, what study are you talking about? There's two concurrent studies going on, one about Pecan Orchard and then one countywide.
The countywide study.
So we've progressed as far as we can until we can meet with the ad hoc committee to help guide our engineering firm into what kind of level of service that they believe the county should offer its residents. So once the ad hoc meets and starts discussing the needs of Kershaw County and how they envision it to look, then the study will continue to move forward.
Okay, so assuming that you have the meeting within the next month or so, how much longer will the study take after that?
I believe it's there's 3 1-month meetings, so at least 3 months to get through all the recommendations, and probably another month or 2 to finish the study.
And then by that time, we would have an idea of somewhat overall spend, or would you have to wait for the engineering to have an idea of overall spend required to handle the rest of the county?
No, by the end of the study, you should have an understanding of if there is going to be a fee structure, how that would look, how much money it should bring in. The complete study should be done in about 5 months.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Well, I've got one other question, but yes, Mr. Jones, if it's directed to this
Well,
gentleman.
it's directed to everybody here. You know, we have folks standing on the edge of a cliff. This has nothing to do with the pecan orchard request. You have 2 different animals here. You have an A and a B. And I don't like the way people have been treated. I'm going to slow down a minute. But this is 2 separate issues. I don't want to convolute it with the stormwater overview. I'm talking about the pecan orchard as if I would be talking about a residence in Bethune or wherever else if they were living on the edge like these folks are. And as I said, we're better than that than to just mix it up with as I said, that's fine what, Jonathan, you guys are doing, but it has nothing to do with what we're trying to do with the pecan orchard.
Okay, well, since I still have the floor, actually, I view them kind of tied together because based on projects or quotes or mobilization or who actually ultimately gets bids, there's dollars to be saved in doing these projects. That's what I'm primarily interested in. And to that point, I was going to ask Mr. Templer on these RIA grants. We've had success with one recently, primarily because we had Mr. Yao advocating heavily for sewer-related grants. Yes. $10 million that the county didn't have to raise taxes for or fees for otherwise to fund that we received from the state, correct? So I'm just wondering how much success have the county had previously with other RIA grant applications? And I understand each one is going to be a case-by-case basis, but just generally, whenever you submit, I know we've done it before, is it 30%, 50%, 100%? How are you hitting with RIA?
We have, to this scale, we have spoken with RIA in the past, we being Vic Carpenter and I, but they were very amenable because of just the rural settings we have. So this is kind of what they're geared for. This is why they exist for items like this. I have seen them deny some things in Kershaw County, but it was for a special purpose tax district as it relates to a water provider in the upper part of the county. So, but with this, these types of grants, these types of needs, to me, this is what specifically they are for.
And follow-up question to that is, in your experience, would RIA like to see a holistic application that says, hey, this is all the money we need related to stormwater, or do they want to see it piecemeal, and which way are they going to be more favorable to granting us the funds to benefit these folks?
Yeah, look at this and then on top with the other added layer saying, look, we are going to look across our county to make sure that we are addressing these issues and preventing them or correcting. To me, that looks very favorable.
So, gentlemen, I'll just share, having lived at the State House for 2 years, there's a best way to go about doing these things and whatever they prefer. I mean, you know the staff there at RIA, and we know some of the board members. Just between now and next meeting, and we should probably consult with them a little bit more in detail and see which method is easier for their staff and most likely get us the most funds possible for Kershaw County.
So you're saying, Mr. Chair, that we're going to combine the two?
If I may.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I think we need to gauge the preference of the state entity that we're seeking a substantial grant from and make sure that we align our applications with their preference exactly so that we get the best result.
I say we apply for the Pecan Orchards grant money and we move forward.
Chairman, if I may intervene?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. President.
Our dear sweet administrator, Danny. Would it be too complex, since we did go into this engineering study is an A and a B. Can we keep the appropriations separate and then have a total use that could be clearly defined as to, we know what the price for the pecan orchard is. We have a actual firm number. 1.2 million is what we're being told. Is that correct?
Roughly, the projects haven't been ultimately finalized and selected.
But that's a budgetary number. That's, as a county, that's about as good as we're going to get. We're going to get a budgetary number until it goes to bid. So can we apply for that? And then can we also apply for the B that gives us a total? And that way, when it comes back to us, there's no way for anything to get intermingled or intertwined so that the projects can move forward clearly and there not be a tangled debate amongst this dais.
What I'm going to do and what I've made a note to do is just reach out to Bonnie at RIA and just specifically have this conversation. I know there's a deadline for this, and I think this grant itself recycles in how long, Joe?
I think they're twice a year.
Okay.
Who's going to do the grant writing, Mr. Templer?
Michael Baker, and they will do the submission. So, but yes, to do my fact finding and to beat the clock for the submission and get everything I need to know to maximize the efficiency. So if there is an aggregate of funding that we can get for an overall larger scope, to your point, Mr. Cannell, that if we can pull in more dollars, but I also understand your.
Well, I just don't want to turn into a fight.
Right, right.
You and I and Gerald and Jimmy stood before, what, 75 people, 100 people, and made a commitment. And I want to stand good on that commitment. All at the same time, I completely support our chairman's overall objective of making sure that Kershaw County has a holistic view on what we're doing. What I say is we do both, and we do both clearly, not to be confused or intertwined with one another. It is a similar problem, but again, it's apple and oranges. If it's a subdivision with issues that's paved with asphalt and has curb and gutter and has a detention pond, that's not the pecan orchard. The pecan orchard has substantial issues because of when and how it was built and how it was approved prior to the county being the approval agency. I mean, we all know that. So we just want a clear path forward. We want a clear path forward for everyone. And I don't disagree with any of the comments made tonight. I think everybody's roughly on the same page. I just don't want it to be a point of contention. I'd like clear direction given to us by you, our administrator, and a clear dollar figure for each project and keeping them separate and looking at the holistic view of Kershaw County's improvement plans or preventative maintenance plans or whatever they may be. That's my goal.
Fair enough.
Any further questions or comments? All right, looks like no votes needed, Mr. Jones, if there's no actual request for funding. And by reference to the Finance Committee, I think you've got your request.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, gentlemen, that takes us to item number 11C, Comprehensive Plan Update. Mr. Templer, if you could give us a brief update, I'll just have a few comments. Excuse me. Seek a motion for that. I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a second. All in favor? It's unanimous. It's handed by those who are present. Mr. Templer, if you would, please give us a brief update.
So as you heard some of the public comments tonight, the draft is available. Again, I think it's important to note that it is still just a draft. I know there's some typos in it. I found those as well as I read through it. So we will continue to move along with that. There's a long process ahead. The public input is going to be important. I still have some input that I think I need to have in there just reading it. So I feel like a few items are not stated clear enough or not stated often enough. One of those items were stormwater, but understanding that this is a guiding document, not a regulatory document, as will be the ZLDR. So this is still, as I've said with the AOD many, many times, it's wet cement. We have opportunities to still make changes and adjustments. So
Okay, thank you, Mr. Templer. I put this on the agenda primarily to address some of the feedback I was hearing from the Planning Commission. We had Chairman Towle here tonight. Thank you for your remarks earlier on various items that came before us on this agenda. But I think before we actually set this up on a agenda before this body, we'll probably look at another 2+ months, somewhere around there, for the Planning Commission to do their work. They've been very deliberate on a lot of the AOD work, and I believe they're also going to be very deliberate on the comprehensive plan update and recommendations, as we've heard before. These are folks who volunteer in the community and who have taken on the mantle of making recommendations to county council and giving feedback that's very helpful, and we got to lean on them hard. Unfortunately, this has probably been the hardest lean in the last 4, 5, 6 years or more, and it'll happen again as the statute requires updates from time to time. But through some of the goal-setting documents and other things, I think we can make the comp plan and ZLDR a little bit more proactive and easy to change when needed. And so it's just a general update, no vote required, just as a heads up that I think the Planning Commission is going to need a little bit of additional time. And so if staff will be flexible and also council members, that also accommodates additional meetings for the public and additional attendance at public meetings and comments therein. Any other comments or questions on this topic?
Quick question, what's the deadline for us to have the comp plan third reading done by?
I don't have that deadline.
I believe the last comp plan is 17/27, I think so.
Can we hear from the chairman of the?
I was going to say it's March 27th, 2027.
Yeah.
We all need to have that third reading by that date. I promise we'll have it no later than December 2020th, December 2026.
Well, ideally sooner. So the reason I ask you is obviously the other important piece of that is the ZLDR rewrite, which we can't do until we get the comp plan. And I'm eager to get that done as well. But, I don't see any reason why, and I know, Mr. Towle, I've spoken with you about, the need for 2 months. I have no issue with that. And I think, within 2 months, we'll be getting into our budget votes. And I don't see any reason, Mr. Chairman, why it would seem like it would be good timing for it to come to us after we've already voted on the budget. So we're not doing both of those at once. But just a thought.
But you got to let them finish, Mr. Shoemake.
I understand, but we also have a ZLDR rewrite that's going to take a year and a half to do.
And we'll get it done. We knew 2 years going into this.
Yeah, I hear you. The chairman of the Planning Commission mentioned 2 months, and I think, what I'm suggesting is even greater than that.
At least 2 months.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from council members? Seeing none, no votes required. That takes us to the next agenda item. This is 12A, Clean Community Commission District 1. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to appoint Nicola Garcia to a 3-year term to the Clean Community Commission upon recommendation of Jill Wolf. And I never say no to Jill. She is always right. And happy to make that appointment tonight.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, you got a second, you got the floor.
Not a whole lot to say. Just sounds like working well together, and want to clarify it and make the appointment happen and keep things moving for the commission for the next 3 years.
And just a point of clarification for me, for reappointments, no new applications required in the packet.
I mean, the person's already serving.
That's what I
vetted
thought.
once. Yeah, correct.
There we go. Any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, we'll call it for a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. Ms. Hannah, it's unanimous by those who are present. Takes us to item 12B, gentlemen. Placed on the agenda by Mr. Tomlinson, Santee Watery SWRTA appointment. Mr. Tomlinson.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Mrs. Whitney Marsh DeShant to the Santee Watery Regional Transportation Authority.
All right, is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Mr. Brazel. Mr. Tomlinson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to add a little bit. Whitney, I know her by Marsh. She grew up here. Her family was part of owning Hopefield Farms. She's lived here all her life. She spent a little bit of her professional career up north where she met her husband. And now they live back here in Kershaw County. She's a huge staple. She's came back and taken on a big role at the United Way here. where she helps with transportation of people to medical appointments, along with many other things. Whitney is going to be a huge resource to Kershaw County as Kershaw County's appointment to the RTA, and this has been a vacancy on the board for quite some time now. So I'm excited to get County Council's appointment, and I really appreciate Whitney agreeing to serve on the RTA.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, we'll move it to a vote. All in favor? Ms. Hannah, it's unanimous by those who are present. That takes us to council briefings. Mr. Cato, would you start us off?
I have no report tonight.
No report. Thank you. Mr. Thompson, any report?
I don't have any report either, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, any report?
Two things very quickly. One, our thoughts and prayers out to Steve Vincent's family. And I know they're coping with quite a bit tonight. And also Sly Robinson's. And I really appreciate this council being lenient as far as very flexible when it comes to the resolution. And this is going to be a very important thing at the next meeting that we have, Kershaw County. Thank you. I have no further report.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Shoemate.
In the spirit of the brevity, just a reminder, and I'll remind again, but Saturday, March 22nd, 9 a.m. to noon is our spring community cleanup, sponsored by our Clean Community Commission. kccleancommission@gmail.com. Please help.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemate. Mr. Brazel, any report?
Sorry, Councilman Cato and I were clarifying something. A good customer and friend and cousin of Danny Cato's passed away. Mr. Bobby Watkins passed away, and we just want to wish his family peace and grace during this difficult time. Bobby did he live in Bethune or Bethune area? Wonderful guy. He installed hardwood floors, had a hardwood flooring business, and he was a customer of mine and my family's for over 20 years, and he passed away suddenly, and I just wanted to make mention of that we're thinking about the family during this difficult time.
Thank you, Mr. Brazel. Yes, deep condolences go out to those who've passed away recently. As you can tell, there's a deep impact on the community from those who've led lives of leadership and given so much and sacrificed. And so our prayers go out to them as well. It's kind of tough to stick your chest out about picking up so much trash, but I think each one of these times we do these community cleanups, it's like, hey, you're high-fiving over picking up 300 bags of trash, and you're like, hold on, that's not good. we don't want to be able to do that or have to do that. So yes, to Councilman Shoemake's point, please come out and help. And then, of course, on the 29th, March 29th, is the Carolina Cup, which is a gateway and exposure for Kershaw County for, it is a exposure for Kershaw County to many people, many businesses, many new friends, many family members, and so we look forward to that event coming up, and I hope to see y'all out there. Also wanted to mention someone else passed away recently. Lenny Haston passed away. Haston, part of Jimmy's family. Thank you for that note.
Yeah.
And so our condolences and prayers go out to them as well, and you, Jimmy.
Thank you very much.
Sorry to hear that.
Lenny Haston, thank you, Mr. Chair.
That concludes my report. We've got administrator's briefing up next. Mr. Templer.
I just want to thank Tom Webb for the flowers. Everything he brings up here in defiance of the litter ordinance mysteriously ends up in my office, so this will actually look good. I have firewood and crockery and paper and vase and just, so thank you, Tom. I appreciate that if you're still here. And that's my report.
Okay. Thank you. Any legal briefing?
No.
Okay, we have two executive session items, A and B, both under relevant code sections 34-70, seeking legal advice or relating to a threatened, pending, or potential legal claim. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
I make a motion we go into executive session.
Mr. Cato, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Seeing there's no discussion, that's from Mr. Tomlinson. All in favor of going into executive session, raise your hand. Ms. Hannah, it's unanimous by those who are present. We're in executive session. Seek a motion to conclude executive
Make a
session.
motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second to end executive session?
Second.
Mr. Schumake has a second. All in favor of concluding executive session? It's unanimous by those who are present. Ms. Hannah? Motion for adjournment. Can I get one?
I make a motion, we move.
We
to
got
adjourn.
Mr. Tomlinson and Mr.
Move to the
Cato.
house.
All in favor of adjourning, raise your hand. And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.